Let's fast forward. Brett wrote in his book, on June 2nd, I had an in-depth talk with Vince McMahon. He told me the company was in financial peril and that he was only just barely hanging on. The next 6 months are either going to make or break him. He said Ted Turner was hell-bent on putting him out of business, and he told me he might have no choice other than to restructure my contract. Of course, I'd still get every dime he owed, but I'd get it on the back end years down the road. He added that he appreciated how hard I was working for him, and he told me not to worry about anything. I sure didn't want to receive the money owed to me now at the back of my contract. So I did call my lawyer to see what my options were if Vince tried to do that kind of a move. But when it came down to it, I don't believe that he ever would do that. Does Vince have a talk with, I mean, you're making budgets. So does he sit down with you and say, Jim, what can we do? What are the suggestions? Or does he bring it to you and say, looking at this, I think we've got to restructure Brett? And do y'all have a conversation ahead of that conversation, or do you find out about it after the fact?
Well, I knew that we were treading on thin ice, to the point that he and I had a conversation at one point where there was casual may not be the word. It wasn't a formal meeting, but we talked about the option of bankruptcy, reorganization. So it was serious. It was very serious. Again, for those of us that did take those cuts in pay, it was real too. I mean, real stuff. Your check just shrunk a bunch after that. So, but we knew cash flow was bad. We got to get something hot. We had to get some talent over. Somebody's got to get hot. We got to start drawing. We got to get some pay-per-view attractions, et cetera, et cetera. But we didn't have that. We were still working toward that deal. But then, he said I think that his words to me were the Brett deal now with this financial situation is going to be very problematic. Well, when somebody tells you that, here's what you don't have to be a mathematician or an MBA to figure out the fact that we got to fix this thing. So we either got to get an influx of new cash and be able to honor Bret Hart's contract, or we got to go to Bret and say, hey, look, we made a mistake. We didn't realize business was going to be this way. We don't have the cash flow. We can't honor our agreement, but we want to restructure. Much like you see in the NFL all the time. We want to restructure. And that's kind of where you kind of know that's one of those things is going to happen. But we didn't have a specific conversation about Brett, but I knew that his deal was tenuous. It was a little rough now because of the economy and our economy specifically.
Let's keep it moving here. We're going to talk about the go home edition of Raw on our way to King of the Ring. But first, I want to ask you about Great Sasuke. He held a press conference on May 28th in Tokyo to announce that he had signed with the WWF. He says the WWF offered him a 1-year contract, but he only agreed to a 6-month deal. How did Great Sasuke come to be on your radar? Is he a guy who's trying to send tapes? Are you guys actively looking for a way to compete with the luchadors on Nitro and the cruiserweights, or how does this come together?
Victor Quinones again brought him to us as we were trying to get more diversified and to find some new talents that were fresh talents. WCW had signed a lot of people. The indie situation then was not like as good as it is now, and so we needed some fresh talent that we could work with creatively, and that could offer something that we didn't have, and that was the Kaientai group, the junior heavyweights. So Sasuke was the boss of that group, Michinoku Pro. So that's how he came about. Again, Victor Quinones was our liaison with the Japanese and the Mexican promotion.
This go home edition of Raw opens up with The Undertaker. Vince is trying to get an explanation out of him for why he did what he did. And he explains that he wasn't doing that to protect himself, but the ones he loved. Paul Bearer wants to come out and say, hey, you've done enough talking. Maybe I should do some talking. And Bear's going to say that now that he controls both Mankind and The Undertaker, he's going to be the ruler of the world. And at that point, Sid's music hits and you exclaim, he's back. And you explain that he's been out with a lower lumbar back injury. And Sid sets the record straight that, first of all, fat man, you don't rule nothing. I rule the world. Sid's back here. Talk to me a little bit. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about Sid, but This is a guy who developed a reputation for being in and out, and there's lots of rumor and innuendo and sort of inside jokes about softball. Was he really out here with a lower lumbar injury? And what can you tell us about Sid's return and his sabbatical, if you will?
Well, I had to believe that his back was bad and that, it was affecting his work, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of the boys will tell you that, it was softball season and he loved to play softball. And, he was an attraction in softball. He hit the long ball, as you can imagine. He wasn't a bunter. He didn't move runners around. He didn't sacrifice anybody. He hit the long ball. So, but Sid kept getting opportunities because of his amazing and obvious unlimited physical potential. He had an amazing look. He was athletic for a guy his size. And so he had everything. He had it. And, but always something seemed to get in the way. Always something adversely affected the progress of this guy who really legitimately, if you're going to draw a picture of a big box office guy, then he's one of the guys you should draw because he's 6'9", 300. He's ripped up. He looks great. And if the old Vince McMahon rule, you walk through the airport, is somebody going to notice him? You're damn right they are. So that was he kept waiting that all the baggage of whatever it was, self-inflicted baggage or donated baggage on Sid was going to go away, and he was going to finally be able to be what he wanted to be and needed to be. It just never did happen in WWE.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.